Hello and welcome to the Self-Consciousness Podcast. I am your host, Jennifer Way, and this is episode 96 in our New Earthing series. Today, I am absolutely thrilled to bring you a beautiful and powerful conversation with Nergiz DeBaere. She's a writer, thinker, a young matriarch whose visionary work expands our understanding of what matriarchy truly means and how it could shape a new future. What kind of society works for the new earth? Well, we're here to propose that it is the system of matriarchy, but not the misunderstood version where women dominate. This is something deeper. As Nergiz explains, matriarchy is an ancient, egalitarian system rooted in maternal values like nurturing, reciprocity, etc. It's also rooted in consensus-based decision-making, and it really is a community-centric way of life. We talk about how matriarchy offers a path to dismantling patriarchy, how self-actualization plays a vital role, and how everyone, men included, has a part to play in creating a thriving, interdependent world. You won't want to miss this one. Thank you so much for being here, and stay tuned. Welcome, Nergiz DeBaere, to the Self-Consciousness Podcast. I am so happy to finally have you on. We've had a couple of misses, but again, I'm so grateful for you to make the time to come onto the show.
Thank you so much for inviting me on. It's such an honor.
Oh gosh. Thank you so much. So you're a mother, you're a writer, you're an artist, and an activist, and even a small business owner in a way with Chix. So your specialty is really the new matriarchy. I saw you on TikTok. That's how I found you, and just listened to your words, and I was like, immediately. It was just so refreshing. I always love hearing anything having to do with matriarchy. So can you take us back to a moment when you really felt like a first quiet knowing? I don't know, maybe it was like a loud calling that this work, just educating people, writing about it, was your purpose.
I've actually known for quite a long time. I'm almost 30 now, but I've known since I was, in my early 20s that this was something that really gave me fire and life. Um, because I've cared about justice for a long time. I've been protesting since I was 9 years old. In Azerbaijan, my family is very pro democracy, and has been very vocal against the government here for a long time. And the same president who I protested when I was 9 years old is still in power. So you can get an idea of how deep the oppression really goes.
Wow.
Um, so I've always been plugged into that. But I realized in my early 20s that the biggest, most global issue that of our time is climate change and the climate crisis. So I've been writing about that, researching about that for years now from an ecofeminist lens, kind of bringing together the way that we treat women and the way that we treat the earth. I've seen a lot of similarities. And the country that I come from is deeply patriarchal. And I've noticed that in all the different places I've lived, that the way that women are treated and the rights that women have directly correlates to the way the earth is treated in that country. So, for example, where I come from in Azerbaijan, it's an oil-rich country. There's not any attention paid to the environment at all. It's all about profit, it's all about wealth. And as you can imagine, women don't have a lot of rights or really like freedom in their way of life.
Yeah.
And that connection is really strong to me. Everywhere I go, I see that connection. So yeah, I've been writing about that for a few years now. And the moment, to me, I remember it so vividly, was I was in London. This was 2019, and it was like 90 degrees in February. And I
Oh
remember
my
everyone around
God.
me was enjoying it. And I just couldn't. It felt wrong. And I have this connection, I think, to what feels right and what feels wrong. And I just knew I had to do something with that feeling. I had to bring awareness to the idea that, like, although we should be enjoying, of course, we should enjoy life, we should also take responsibility for what we have now done.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, I've been using that sort of impulse to try to get other people to understand and become aware of that as well.
Wow. Is that around when you started Chix? So Chix is
Yeah,
yeah, just go ahead and explain a little bit about what it is.
yeah, it started that February. I
Oh,
started
wow.
posting on Instagram,
Yeah.
um, and I wanted to bring these two topics together, feminism and environmentalism. I really didn't see anywhere on Instagram that that connected those two topics.
Yeah.
Um, and I was posting every day. I was researching different topics, and it blew up, especially over the pandemic. A lot of people started following the page. I was really surprised. I thought this was so niche.
Yeah.
And it started off as Chicks for Climate, and then later on, I rebranded it to Chicks because I really realized that these two topics are at the core of almost every injustice.
Yeah.
And if we can look at the problems that we face in the world through an eco-feminist lens, we can actually start to heal a lot of the damage that we've done personally, environmentally, politically, economically. Like, it's very broad.
Yeah. What are some of the ways that you communicate that link in your work?
Mm. Oh, I love that question. I honestly, I think it's such an intuitive topic. I think once it's like if you get it, you get it. Because even if you look at like the way that nature functions and the way that our bodies function, there's so many similarities. Fingerprints and tree roots, your veins and rivers. The fact that our bodies are made of the same elements as stars. These are deep ancient facts, and there's only, I think my job is just to remind people of that. It's not about teaching us anything new, it's about reclaiming and remembering what we know deep inside that is true.
Oh my God. I love that. Just bringing it to the surface. And that's probably why it resonated so much for so many people because we're not really encouraged to be in touch with our feelings about things. Just like you felt that hot day and you're like, this does not feel right. That's,
Exactly.
yeah,
Exactly. And
yeah.
but I think that shows the strength of matriarchy, of
Yeah.
ecofeminism, of connection with the earth, because it's actually not a very high resistance path to get people to remember that. It is intuitive, it is natural. And even though we've been told that the way that we live is natural, like human beings being exploitative and dominant, we've been told that that's natural,
Yeah,
but it's not, it's a distortion. And what's truly natural is the connection.
totally. I love this conversation already. I'm so happy to have you here. Um, when did you decide to really sort of go down the route of educating people about matriarchy and how that can possibly be a new system for people to realistically implement into their lives?
Yeah, I mean, ecofeminism and matriarchy are deeply connected. One kind of feeds into the other. So I like to think that even though I wasn't aware of matriarchy as a possible system before, I was doing matriarchal work. And a
Mhm.
lot of people who do justice and healing work, I think, can relate to what I'm saying. Once you discover matriarchy, you're like, oh, I was doing matriarchy all along. But I didn't accept matriarchy as a possibility until after I became a mother. And it was really in those weeks postpartum that I realized that the system I was in did not value or appreciate what I had just done. I could just see how worthless and discarded I felt after I had just done something unbelievable. And we really take it for granted. Creating life, bringing life into the world, it's so utterly sacred. And our society does not value it. And I really realized that maybe there's something here. There's something about motherhood or the connection that creating life has with the nurturing power of the earth. There's something here about matriarchy that's been missing. Like, it's hard to describe, but when I kind of, I almost got this download of like, matriarchy, it must be matriarchy. And then I started to research and Google. I started to Google matriarchy and matriarchal societies. And then I discovered Dr. Heide Gutner Abendroth's work, who is a foremother. She's the founder of matriarchal studies. She's, in her 80s now. We're in regular contact. But I read her work and a whole new world opened up to me. The idea that matriarchy is the root of human society. It's how we lived for hundreds of thousands of years. Patriarchy as a system is only 6 to 10,000 years old, and it's been positioned as inevitable. It's been positioned as just the way human beings have always been. And in reality, there's this entire social system that has been buried. And it wasn't until I became a mother and I had done my own healing through therapy and physical healing through yoga that I really understood that this is not only possible but necessary for us to actually continue existing on this planet.
Yes, I 100% agree. What made you really commit to bringing that message to the world? Because I mean, I guess it's safe to say, like, it really is your mission. So how did you like commit to that? When did you commit to that? Like, okay, this is the path. This is my purpose right now.
I think it was when Dr. Hyder reached out to me. I
Oh my
think
God.
sometimes we do need that kind of external proof that, like, okay, someone who has been doing this work for 40 years wants to speak to me about what I've written. I wrote an essay called Why the Next Wave of Feminism is Matriarchy. And that was really my, oh, I'm sorry, there's a fly right here that wants to get out.
I love
I'm
that.
sorry.
Don't
It's
be
just really
sorry.
loud. There we go. That's better.
No, what a perfect demonstration right there. What a perfect
There you go.
demonstration.
Exactly.
So she reached out to you.
Yeah. After her students had sent her my essay
Oh,
that I
wow.
had written, so she reached out to me and she said that I had really put very succinctly what she thinks needs to happen, which is that feminists need to embrace matriarchy as the society that we want to create that will finally dismantle patriarchy. Because for so long it's been like, let's dismantle patriarchy, but there's no clear step or blueprint of what comes next. And to me, that's what matriarchy is.
Ah, this is so exciting to me because there's a lot, especially so I'm in like the spiritual field, and there's just a ton of talk for us about divine feminine, and that's like the whole thing. So I love it being spoken about in terms of the new matriarchy because it's very like activating. And I do believe it's got its roots in that sort of divine feminine idea at the sort of essence of it. Um, yeah.
Oh
Just
my,
saying that.
yes,
Yeah.
yes. I mean, I've always been not very attracted to religion,
Yeah.
well, mainstream religions, which I think it's safe to say is more divine masculine,
Hmm.
and divine feminine is like more to do with the earth and the goddess and the great mother. But after I discovered goddess religions, I'm not going to say that I'm, devout, but it created possibilities for me to embrace a completely different type of spirituality.
Yeah.
And it is true that I think there needs to be a balance of both.
Yeah, like a sort of like the path forward and the sort of spirit that drives it. I feel like that's yeah. I kind of want to go back to this sort of your postpartum time. So I know that you're were you born in Azerbaijan and then raised in London in England or the
It's com
States?
I was It's very complicated. I was born in Kenya.
Oh, okay, okay. I did
Yeah,
read this. Yeah.
yeah. And then I was raised in London and Norway and
Okay.
lived in the US as well for a bit.
Okay. Where were you when you did have your daughter?
I was in the UK.
Okay, okay. Because I was just wondering, that that makes sense, feeling that sort of almost immediate lack of support in that kind of environment. When you came back to Azerbaijan, or when you came, to be with your family, is there a sort of way that the women or the elderly women, the older women, the crones, sort of come together to sort of care for a new mother? And can you talk a little?
Definitely.
Yeah. What was
Yeah,
your
it is
experience
different.
there? Yeah.
It's
Oh, it's time.
She can hear my voice.
Oh, yeah.
Oh God. Sorry, just give me one
Yeah, of
second.
course, of course.
I'm
Take
sorry.
whatever time you need. Don't be
Thank
sorry.
you.
Oh, I'm sorry to take you away from her, but I know how it is. I know how it is. Yeah.
Do you have children?
I do. I they're teens now, so I have a 16-year-old daughter and a 14-year-old son.
Wow. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. You're
Yeah.
you're in the adolescent stage.
I'm in it. Yep. Yep.
Yep. Yep.
And yeah. Anyway, go ahead. Go ahead.
All right. Yeah, yeah, no.
Yeah.
Um, it's funny because Azerbaijan is matriarchal culturally,
Yeah.
but patriarchal politically.
Got it.
And I see a mix of those two systems everywhere I go. There's different degrees.
Hmm.
So, for example, in the West, it is patriarchal in a different way, but much less matriarchal. So, let me give you an example. Here, the community aspect is very strong. Older women, matriarchs, have authority within the household. However, it's still patriarchal, it's still hierarchical. Um, Men and boys are considered to be stronger and they have more power.
Hmm.
Um, but the connection to the land that we have is also extremely strong. Um, there's a sense of reciprocity away from, you know, the government. It it's hard to describe, but it's just a very strong community feel,
Yeah.
much stronger than in the West. And as a new mother, that's what you need. And I like to say in my writing that every new mother is their own mini matriarchy and has to exist within a matriarchy in order to grow their child and raise their child into adulthood. Because without the matriarchal values around you of reciprocity, of community, of mother and child centeredness, of regeneration, without those values, you literally cannot raise a child. And so every person who does the work of raising children has to, on some level, under the surface, exist within that matriarchal structure.
Hmm.
And patriarchy uses that in order to keep existing, because without matriarchy, Without new humans, there wouldn't be patriarchal societies or patriarchal economies. Without the invisible labor of women, without domestic work, patriarchal societies would not exist. So when I came to Azerbaijan, I felt much more supported. However, there are very difficult social dynamics here. When you are a woman, you have less freedom, you have less of a voice. And Azerbaijan, even though we do have deep matriarchal roots, there's a history of colonialism for hundreds, thousands of years almost. And those two forces are always in opposition with each other.
Yeah.
Patriarchy wants to kind of take over with the colonialism and that kind of history, but then the matriarchal forces are also really strong.
Yeah. No, I hear you. I want to get into a couple of things. You have some sort of, you have like sort of tenets, I guess, is that the sort of values of what a matriarchy is, which I think is going to be useful. So if you could kind of just go into that sort of explaining for the audience, and then I'll ask my second question because I have like 50. So
I I think the simplest way to understand patriarchal and matriarchal systems is using these tenets, these values, because people often think matriarchy is a system of women rule or just replacing patriarchal systems with women will create a matriarchy. That's not the case. Matriarchal leaders can be any gender, but what makes a good leader in a matriarchal system is how much they support their community. And in a lot of matriarchal communities that still exist, for example, there's one in Indonesia, the mark of a good leader is how well they resemble a good mother, regardless of their gender.
wow.
So in a patriarchal system, I defined patriarchy as a system of domination, exploitation, greed, and individualism. And then a matriarchal system is the inverse. So instead of domination, it's love. Instead of exploitation, it's regeneration. Instead of greed, it's reciprocity. Instead of individualism, it's community.
Oh, wow. That's so perfect. Okay. And then the sort of like linking question to that is, how do you see societies, for example, Azerbaijan, where the fundamental, the sort of earthly culture is a matriarchy, but then the existing sort of political structures, governmental structures, societal structures are a patriarchy. How do you how do you sort of see that moving closer to a matriarchy? I guess in like realistic terms, like how can any of us really move towards a matriarchy with those sort of oppressive systems in place? Like, is it a mix? Is it a transition?
Yeah, I think I encourage anyone who wants to create matriarchy to recognize where it already exists. Because in every human society, it already exists. It's either been hidden or it's been repressed. And for me, I call myself a young matriarch. And I think anyone, again, regardless of gender, can call themselves a matriarch. And it's about committing to a matriarchal life and trusting that when you embody matriarchal values in your life, that that will ripple out into your community. And as people alive today, that's really our responsibility because we are standing with one leg in the old and one in the new. It's not our job necessarily to fix everything, but we are the ancestors of the future matriarchy. And so our job is to alchemize the pain and the trauma of patriarchy and create healing and educate the next generation who can then educate their children on how to actually live in matriarchy. So I think the most powerful thing you can do is to heal your own patriarchal wounds, I call them,
Mm.
and try to understand how patriarchy has affected you and with what norms you move through your life and your community. For example, some patriarchal norms that I point to are the normalization of the nuclear family. So the idea that
Mm.
your romantic partner is more important than anyone else, or that your family is the only legitimate family that you can have. I think once we start to think of human beings as family, as sacred, regardless of whether they're related to us or not, that will start to change things. And right now we've normalized corporate time. So the 9 to 5, Monday to Friday, quarter one, the year starting in January.
Yeah.
And once we start to connect to the earth seasons, the movements of the sun, it's so simple, but it really does change things because you feel much more connected to the earth. That's really what this work is, where patriarchy disconnects us from ourselves, our own inner essences, each other, and the earth. The work of matriarchy is to reconnect, reconnect with ourselves, reconnect with each other, and reconnect with the earth. So if we can do that, if we can, as people alive today, get a little bit closer to the connection, that already can create societal change on a huge scale.
Wow. Yeah. Ah, God, you break it down in such a perfect way. You really sort of, it seems kind of like the hugest idea, concept that almost seems impossible, but the way you break it down, it's almost like the path is regenerative itself because you're taking this waste or you're taking this sort of stuff that can be regenerated into something new and really like I love that you use the word alchemize because that's really what it's like we have to digest it and then we've got to push it out and then we have to like excrete what we don't need anymore and sort of keep nourishing ourselves kind of moving forward with the right idea, well, these ideas and values moving forward. Yeah, I mean, I always feel like one of the biggest things that I notice is just this overvaluing of men, of, you know, cisgendered men, whether it's in their income or their place in the world. You know, it's always been like inherent that they exist as more valuable.
I
Yeah,
have a
no.
point actually about what you just said because it's
Oh,
super important.
yeah, yeah. Thank you.
This 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 imbalance of overvaluing of men and undervaluing of women, that is patriarchy 101. Split split humanity up into two separate groups, the gender binary, right? And then create men who have more power or assign more power to men
Mhm.
and define women in opposition to men as what they lack, you
Yeah.
know, and that you create an imbalance. And what we need to do also to create a matriarchal society is definitely get rid of the gender binary because the binary really doesn't have a place in a matriarchal future because the only point of the binary is to determine who has power and who doesn't. Um, but what we need to do in the meantime, I know a lot of people who do healing and social justice work want to move to a genderless and or fluid, self-defined future. What we need to do as a bridge is to rebalance. So people who have been socialized as women need to step into a framework of womanhood that allows them to feel more powerful because we've been told as women that we are weaker. And even though those words are not necessarily said exactly,
Yeah.
that's what womanhood is under patriarchy. You're not as strong, you're not as capable, and those kind of subliminal messages have been sort of leaked into us from
Yeah.
childhood. So what we need to do is need to define womanhood as powerful. And then men, people who've been socialized as men, need to release masculinity as a marker of their worth so that we can rebalance and then ultimately release gender.
Oh my God, I love that. I love that argument about like women being weaker and men being stronger. I'm always like, yeah, creating life in your body is super weak, you know? Or that example that people are always like, yeah, if you kick a guy in the nuts, he's debilitated, but like if you kick, it's like, okay, he's super strong. I remember some guy I was working in a restaurant and this huge guy came and he was like delivering huge heavy boxes and I was trying to lift it up because a little part of me was like, oh, I can do it, and he's like, no, come on, you're a woman, put it down. And I was like, and he's like, men are stronger. And I was like, there's a lot of women who could kick a lot of men's asses. Like, not every man is stronger and not every woman is weaker. It's like, I just love seeing that sort of play out. I have to say, I do love seeing it play out in places like TikTok and Instagram because it really is catching on. Do you find that, especially from when you started to now, that these ideas are really catching on and they're really sort of being accepted by a lot of people?
Absolutely. It's because once you take a second to really dissect the assumptions, it falls apart. That's the whole point,
Yeah.
right? It's not built on reality.
Yeah, it's
So,
true.
yeah, so once you observe humanity, it
Yeah.
becomes obvious like women are not weaker than men. If anything, they're stronger, right? Like not in terms of just like naturally, innately, but as women raised, most of us are raised under a patriarchal system, the things that we have to endure and the conditions that we have to normalize, it does create a kind of strength that is incomparable to men who have kind of been coddled, honestly,
Yeah.
in these systems. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. How do you recommend or how do you sort of address women who need to sort of let go of their like internal patriarchy? The whole like decentering men movement. What would you say to women who are having difficulty of letting go of this societal structure because it's so embedded?
Yeah, I'm still struggling with it myself, honestly.
Same. Yeah.
I mean, this is like collective conditioning. It's
Yeah.
it's very difficult. It's very deep. Um, but I think the most powerful idea to let go of is that as a woman, you're destined for a life of servitude or obedience or inherent weakness. We
Mhm.
don't have a lot of examples of matriarchal women. What I mean by that is women who are raised from birth to be leaders, to stand tall, to trust their inner knowing, to move their hips, to be wise, nurturing, fierce, and sexual all at once.
Mm.
We
So
don't have
important.
examples of that. We have examples of womanhood that are fragmented, and we have expectations of women under patriarchy that are inherently contradictory and don't allow anyone to succeed. You have to be nurturing, but you also can't be protective, right? How can you
Mhm.
be nurturing, not be protective of your child?
Yeah.
You have to be sexual, but not too sexual,
Yeah. Oh my God.
right?
Yes.
There's no way to succeed at being a woman in a patriarchy, and that's the point. And I think we need to let go of these expectations of ourselves and understand that, we have inherent power that is not tied to the system.
Yeah.
We have the ability to create beauty and abundance without having to buy anything, without having to contort ourselves.
Mhm.
It's all available to us.
Yeah. Or restrict ourselves, you know. Yeah.
Yes,
So much that was kind of like the word that keeps popping up for me is like restriction. You know, all the external restriction has resulted in so much internal restriction, whether it's with like food, and not going outside of the ideal, beauty standard. It all involves restriction, especially with feelings. Don't cry. Don't cry. Don't let people see that you're emotional and that you have an overflow, you know? Of course we have an
right.
overflow. What the fuck do you expect? Like, can't dam this in,
No,
Yeah.
no,
Uh,
but they're afraid of the flow, they're afraid of it has to be rigid. That's patriarchy, rigidity. But
yeah.
matriarchy is flow and abundance and letting go and releasing.
Yeah, absolutely. I've used this example before, but my daughter is 16 and I definitely noticed, like you said, like along the way, I could see my external or my internal patriarchy coming out. And definitely made mistakes, but tried to sort of catch them as I went along. And she is now just ferocious. She's she's so she's really confident and it's just so heartbreaking. And she also emotes very visibly and very often, but she processes her emotion and then she moves beyond it. But just to witness the outside environment respond to her in her sort of I really wanted to allow her to be unadulterated as possible in the world. Really let her be who she is, move through her cycles, through her interests, through her obsessions that eventually she, maybe leaves behind or, incorporates into her current self. But just it is really heartbreaking to see the outside world react to her, um, whether it's girls who have internalized so much of the misogyny and witness her, and just can't stand that embodiment.
The
It,
mirror.
the mirror, exactly. Yeah, it makes me really sad.
Wow.
Like that's,
Wow.
yeah,
That that's heartbreaking.
yeah,
But she is so lucky because you as her mother, you're the soil, and no matter what the climate is, she has that healthy soil.
yeah.
So I think
Oh,
it's powerful that she has
thank
that.
you. Thank you. Yeah. And then there's my son. But, anyway, that's a whole nother kind of sort of the idea of raising sons. Um, what would you what would you say to this? I know this idea of the male loneliness epidemic comes up. How can matriarchy address that? How does matriarchy address that?
I love that because that's literally the next video idea I'm working on for
Oh,
TikTok.
get out. Oh my God, that's perfect. Yay. You don't have
Matriarchy
to
is
give
the
away too
perfect.
much. Yeah.
Excuse me. Matriarchy is the perfect antidote to the male loneliness epidemic because patriarchy is the cause of the male loneliness epidemic.
Hallelujah.
And
Yeah.
I see this a lot of men blaming feminism for their problems when really patriarchy is the culprit. And I think there's a bit of a confusion. And that's why I think this idea that we need to embrace matriarchy as a social structure is so important. We need to name matriarchy as the society we want because it doesn't allow for the confusion of, well, it's feminists' fault. Women are so independent now and they're not here to coddle men's every need. It is true that feminist movements have created freedom and choices for women so that we don't have to choose marriage as a survival mechanism
Yeah.
anymore. Yes, true. And that is possible that it has contributed to the male loneliness epidemic because women are free, free to choose their own lives and not have to choose men to survive. And so inevitably, in fact, a lot of men are being left behind academically, socially, economically, and that's patriarchy's fault because patriarchy does not encourage men to be full human beings. It only encourages them to be patriarchal men, right? To
Yeah.
dominate or to prove their masculinity. And that's not a recipe for thriving.
Yeah.
Suppressing your emotions and seeing human connection as frivolous or something that just like happens without effort is a recipe for loneliness, right? And how we socialize men under patriarchy is to expect less of them, to expect them to mm, only have anger as an appropriate outlet.
Yeah.
That's not a way to raise someone to be social or to be loved or
Yeah.
to receive and give with joy. We don't raise men under patriarchy to be that way. Now, matriarchy allows men to be full human beings, to integrate the different parts of themselves as emotional beings, as logical beings, because we all have those dualities within us, right? And I think women, because of feminist movements, have been allowed to develop these two dualities. We're allowed to be emotional because we're women, but we've also had to adapt to a patriarchal system. So we have the sort of logical side to us that's
Yeah.
been allowed to develop as well. Whereas men are only expected to be logical, are only expected to be one-sided. So matriarchy is not only a complete transformation of our political and economic structures,
Yeah.
but it's also, like I said, a personal transformation and will solve many, if not all of the problems that we have today.
Yeah. Hear that, guys? For sure. Oh my God. Yeah, thank you for the work that you're doing. Your voice is so important and it's just so well articulated. It's grounded, it's honest, and the direction is palpable, and the sort of goal is palpable, which is a great balance to sort of welcoming in the truth of connection and love and the softer stuff. And I just really appreciate all of your work, and I would love for you to tell everybody about your upcoming book that's coming out and how it's being published and distributed. Because I
Yeah,
think it's really
definitely.
important.
Thank you. And thank
Yeah.
you for holding space because I am a writer.
Yeah.
I'm not a speaker. So I struggle sometimes because speaking is live, it's in
Yeah.
real
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
Whereas writing, you can I like to just get everything out on the page and then go through and edit, but you
Yeah.
can't do that with speaking.
Yeah.
So
You did so well. I mean,
thank
yeah,
you.
no, it was great, really.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. But yeah, I am writing a book called Matriarchy. Um, I was going to publish it through a traditional publisher. It's based on my essay that I wrote last year called Why the Next Wave of Feminism is Matriarchy.
Yeah.
But it's an expansion of that. It's about pinpointing the problem, which is patriarchy, and how patriarchy has led to the climate crisis, and why matriarchy is not only natural to human beings, but must be embraced if we are to survive on this planet.
Yeah.
And I found a literary agent who was really advocating for me and loved my writing and had all these connections to the publishing world. And my book was distributed among them earlier this year. We sent it out on Trump's inauguration day, thinking, okay, this is the moment that
Balance.
people,
Yeah.
Yeah,
Balance the
exactly.
energy
Balance
of
it
the
out.
day. Yeah.
Right. Right. And we sent it out to 30 or 40 publishers, and there was a fear of embracing this kind of controversial idea,
Yeah.
a fear of, I think, me not being a sort of big enough voice or big enough name to hold such a large idea. But I think there's a misunderstanding of what matriarchy is. And it totally makes sense that the institutions didn't accept it. And I think it's actually great that it worked out this way, because now I decided to self-publish with the help of community, and where 30 publishers and big institutions said no, almost 100 people have said yes and have supported the writing of the book. And in my head, I would like the book to be in the hands of 500 people, and for 500 people to support the writing of the book, because to me, that's enough to fill up a village and to make sure that the idea can spread in a matriarchal, slow release kind of way.
Oh God. I love that. Again, it's like that is the perfect way for it to move forward. And there was actually another thing that I meant to bring up earlier, but I did see you write a little bit about barter economy and gift economy. Is there anything that you can sort of just tell everybody about the sort of main tenets of that and how that works?
Yeah, definitely. I actually did my university degree in economics. So I'm an expert in the current economic system, which is an exchange economy.
Yeah.
So you give and you get, in theory, the same value immediately of what you give, right? That's how our economy works. You pay for something with money and then you get something in return. So I'm very well versed in that,
Yeah.
but I think that gives me a great foundation to be able to understand the inverse. And that's how I like to think of it. Matriarchy is the inverse of patriarchy. The gift economy is the inverse of the exchange economy, because what it is truly about, it's about needs. So if someone has a need, for example, for water, for food, for shelter, their community fulfills that need. So they can receive, with the idea that if this person's needs are met, they will, themselves will be stronger and will be able to give in the future back to their community. So that's what the gift economy is. And like I said, mothers already exist within many matriarchies themselves and cannot raise children into adulthood successfully without matriarchal values, including gift economies. Because think about it, if mothers operated on a transactional basis like our economy,
Yeah.
it wouldn't work.
Yeah.
When you're postpartum, you cannot possibly give as much as you receive during that period of time, right? Like your family bringing you food, or people buying gifts from your registry. Those kinds of things are part of the gift economy already. And one of the mothers of the gift economy, she's called Genevieve Vaughan. If anyone wants to read more about it, she is truly the expert on it. And I'm in contact with her as well. She's
Oh,
amazing.
it's amazing. Yeah. I love that.
But she says that we already operate within a gift economy on so many levels. For example, the earth gives us gifts in the form of natural resources, right? The poorer countries of the earth give gifts to richer countries in terms of exploitation. Um, we already volunteer, we already give people money for GoFundMes, we already exist in sort of mutual aid in our immediate communities. But the problem is our wider economic systems ignore or exploit the existing gift economies.
Yeah.
So it's difficult to kind of imagine how you could go to a grocery store and operate with a gift economy.
Yeah.
You can't, because the grocery store as a concept was not built with the gift economy in mind. It was built with the exchange economy. However, if we all had gardens with fruit trees and vegetables and herbs, and our neighbor needed lemons for their lemon cake, we would give them lemons
Yeah.
with the idea that, oh, maybe that neighbor will give me eggs tomorrow when I need them for breakfast, right? And that's the gift economy.
I love that. And that everything you just described is really at the crux of this series, this new earthing series. Like how are we gonna evolve? And that really feels like evolution in the right direction. Um, in just in a higher frequency, everybody, in a higher vibe, you know? Um, thank you
I love that.
so much. So how can people find you? I'm sure people already know, but I will include all the information down below. But what's the best way to find you?
Yeah, I'm Hey Nergiz on every social media channel. So Hey, Heynergiz. And then I'm an author of a Substack newsletter called Letters from a Young Matriarch. And that's really where I kind of write about these ideas in real time.
Yeah,
So if you want to learn more about matriarchy, I'd recommend checking that out.
amazing.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you so much. It was so great to meet you and talk.
It was incredible to talk to you. Thank you so much. This is like, I think the third time that we've tried to do
Yeah.
this. And I'll be honest with you, I'm moving countries tomorrow.
Oh my
I'm moving to
God.
Norway tomorrow.
Oh my
So
God. I'm
I
so, oh
I've
God.
been packing all day and I was exhausted. And I was like, oh, I can't, I have to, I really need to show up to this today. But I'm so glad because I feel so energized just from this conversation. So thank you.
Oh my God. That's like music to my ears. Same, same. Thank you
I'm
so,
so
so
glad.
much.
Thank you.